welcome. How are you doing today? I would like to read some documents and perhaps get your opinion on them because they're a little conflicting and I don't know what to think about it. One of them is a police report filed in 2020, and the other document is a civil suit filed in March of 2023. Now, both of these documents, the police report and the civil suit, were filed by the same individual. And both of these documents filed by this individual were filed against the same two defendants. I'm not going to get into the backstory of who these people are because it's not really important when we're just examining the documents, but I will just say that the two people the reports have been filed against are internet personalities, YouTubers, public figures. They're a married couple. And the person filing these documents is a private individual. That's about it. If I gave you the name of the main figure that these have been filed against, it would be a whole shit show. Nobody would know what to do with themselves because they'd just be like, whatever, I fucking believe anything bad about him. And I mean, everything bad about him is usually true. But that's okay. We're just going over documents. And I think you'll see why when we get there. All right, let's begin with the police report. In September 2019, the Sheriff's Department received information regarding possible sexual exploitation crimes occurring at a residence in... At the time of the initial complaints, there was very little information about the alleged crimes and no first-hand reports from any alleged victim. The complaint centered around a YouTube content creator named... who was known by his YouTube username. The original allegations were documented under case number blah 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 and cleared with no evidence of any criminal activity. Okay, so I don't know the name of the officer who filed this. I'm sure it's written on here somewhere, or maybe it's in one of the redacted parts, whatever. Alright, so this officer writes, on October 2nd, 2019, the Sheriff's Department received a press inquiry from a reporter with Vox Media, who reported that she'd spent time speaking to a number of women who alleged that had groomed them and coerced them into having intercourse. The reporter went on to say that many of these girls were only 14 to 16 years old at the time of these allegations. The reporter requested confirmation that an investigation had been started and provided her contact information. I later contacted the reporter by telephone and advised her that the Sheriff's Department had received allegations from multiple third parties, but had not heard from anyone who claimed to be a victim of a crime. I encouraged her to pass my contact information along to the women she had spoken with so they could contact me if they wanted to report a crime in jurisdiction. I was not contacted by anyone else as a result of my conversation with the reporter. And this frustrates me because I think this is something that a lot of people don't realize is that if you believe you've been the victim of a crime, don't report it to YouTubers. Because I personally have seen this many times online where someone will come out and say, so-and-so did XYZ to me, and then the collective of the internet just screams and is like, why aren't they in prison? And it's because nobody went to law enforcement. Is Twitter supposed to convict and sentence a motherfucker? And oftentimes, it does seem like a crime wasn't actually really committed. It was just really sketchy and immoral behavior. But nobody likes to talk about that. So we won't talk about it. In January 2020, I became aware of a media investigation into the allegations against, which was being conducted by Chris Hansen via his YouTube channel. Chris Hansen is a well-known media personality who focused on stories about accused sex offenders and child predators. As part of his reporting, Hansen attempted to contact as his residence in on January 9th, 2020, which resulted in calling 911. Deputies responded, and Chris Hansen and his filming crew ultimately left the location without speaking to Hansen subsequently released a series of interviews with alleged victims and others with information about alleged crimes on his YouTube channel over the next several months. In addition, Chris Hansen contacted Sheriff's Department and completed an interview with Sheriff so-and-so. I requested through Sheriff so-and-so that Chris Hansen provide the Sheriff's Department with a list of alleged victims so that they could be contacted for interviews to determine the existence and extent of any criminal activity that occurred in the jurisdiction. On February 6th, 2020, I received a list which contained the first name and phone number of 7 alleged victims who had appeared on Chris Hansen's show. The list included the names 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Additionally, the list contained the name 7, who I was later able to identify as 7. Last name. Now, this 7th person is the one who filed the civil suit, which we're going to get into in a moment. And I just want to point out briefly that when people think of Chris Hansen, they idolize him as this authority who hunted and captured predators, right? But he's not. He's a television host. The show that he hosted, To Catch a Predator, that was all produced, right, by a crew and run by an organization called Perverted Justice. And they were the people who were tracking down and ensnaring these predators. Chris Hansen was just there on set with a smooth voice to be like, hey, let me read these chat logs. What's going on? He didn't do anything other than just, he was a television host. That's it. Okay, so following the interview with Hansen, I learned that the FBI had also received numerous emails regarding the same allegations from third parties. I contacted FBI Special Agent by telephone after learning she was assigned to the case for further investigation. Special Agent confirmed that the FBI had received a large number of tips similar to what Sheriff's Department had received, but had not been able to establish that a crime had occurred. Special Agent told me that the FBI had spoken with 7, but had not been able to establish a sex crime had occurred based on that interview. Special Agent told me that 7 had reported that nude and or explicit photographs had been sent between 7 and while 7 was still a minor child. Special Agent said that a computer belonging to 7 had been turned over to the FBI for examination for any evidence to support 7's claim, and then a decision would be made on how the FBI would proceed. Special Agent also provided me with 7's contact information and full name for my investigation. I attempted to contact each of the alleged victims by telephone and left voicemails, requesting they call me back if they wished to file a report. The only person who returned my phone call was 7. Why isn't he in prison? Because 7 people made allegations online and then couldn't be fucked to return a voicemail from the Sheriff's Department. By the way, if my leaves look a little askew, do not adjust your television dial. My cat was playing around in them and they're looking a little ragged today. On March 9th, 2020, I spoke with 7 by telephone regarding this investigation. 7 told me that she did not want our conversation to be recorded, but agreed to talk to me about the allegations. 7 told me that she had initially learned about YouTube channel when she was approximately 14 years old. 7 said she developed an online friendship with and his wife. 7 said she communicated with and his wife via direct message on Twitter. Although she admitted most of her communication was directly with the wife because they were able to relate better. 7 told me during the time she communicated with the wife, they spoke about all different types of topics, including relationship issues, friends, and their sex lives. 7 told me that she had also sent a picture of her breasts and a picture of her underwear to this wife over direct message. Here's something fucked up, man. You can get busted for producing your own child pornography if you take nudes as a minor. Typically, I think they don't prosecute that very much, but like, sometimes they do. And that is horrific to me. Seven said that this wife also sent similar messages, but they had since been deleted. Now, I think you can request your archives from Twitter. I'm not sure, I've never done it, whatever. Seven told me she talked to wife about a fight she had with her mom, and they discussed Seven flying out to state from her home in another state when she was 16 years old. Seven said she ultimately visited and wife in September 2016 for wife's baby shower. Seven said she stayed for 5 or 6 days, but then returned home because her uncle had passed away from cancer. Seven told me nothing of sexual nature occurred during this first trip. Goodness gracious, Seven is really establishing just a whole lot of nothing here, huh? Seven said she returned to state in October of 2016 and lived with and wife until February 2017. Seven said she helped with chores around the house, such as cleaning, cooking, and caring for children. Seven described herself as being like a live-in nanny, but said she was not paid for any of the work that she did. Seven told me during this visit she started to really love wife as a person, but didn't have the same feelings for. Seven said that would verbally abuse her by calling her names, scaring her, and belittling her. Seven said she would occasionally bathe or shower in front of wife while they were talking, but did not have any kind of sexual contact with or wife during this trip. Seven said she ultimately returned home due to all the drama in the household. My goodness, we're already at like 19 minutes runtime here, and we're still on this first document. This other one is 67 pages. Seven said she visited the again from August 2017 to November 2017, and this time lived in a mother-in-law suite on their property. Seven said she continued to do housework but also worked at a Target store, so she had a little more freedom. Seven said there was not any discussion of a sexual nature at the time, and she still felt closer to wife than. And if you're thinking to yourself right now, Danielle, get to the fucking point. I'm just reading I'm just reading this shit. It's Seven who isn't getting to the point. Seven told me that she returned to residence in July 2018 and stayed until late August 2018. She told me that she turned 18 during the visit and who had rarely shown any interest or affection toward her suddenly began to treat her much better. Seven told me the relationship she had with and wife evolved to a point where they would lie in bed together to watch movies and would joke about having threesomes. Seven said it seemed like was pressuring her and wife to become intimate while trying to determine her level of interest in him. Seven told me made a comment to her that he wasn't in love with her, but he loved her. She told me clarified that he felt people needed to have sex to be in love. Seven said she returned to Washington in January 2019 for a trip that only lasted a few days. She told me that during this trip, she engaged in oral sex with and wife on 2 occasions. Seven said that wife felt ignored during the trip and was hurt by that, but otherwise the trip was uneventful. How was it uneventful if y'all were sucking and a fucking? Seven told me she was a willing participant in the sexual activity that took place during this trip. Seven said she returned to state for approximately 1 week at the end of June 2019. She told me tried to convince Seven and wife to participate in a threesome, and on the last night of her visit, the 3 of them had sex. Seven said it was fine and admitted that she also agreed to be girlfriend during the visit, despite his marriage to wife. Seven told me she came back to state in late July 2019 for the last time. She said wife had traveled to her home state, so she and were alone in the house for the first time. Seven told me she and engaged in sexual intercourse during the trip and admitted it had been consensual. Seven told me wife found out about what had happened and got upset about it. Seven told me, claimed she had blackmailed him into having sex and that they ultimately broke up. Seven said she felt overwhelmed with the entire situation, so she returned home and had not returned to... I asked Seven if she had ever been an unwilling participant to any type of sexual activity with wife or... Seven told me she never told them no. And listen, I'm not... no, just because you don't say no doesn't mean you are we're not going to get into, I understand how consent works. I'm just reading the document. Seven told me she never told them no and admitted she was not sure that she was a victim of any crime. She confirmed that she had given her laptop to investigators and was aware that it was in the FBI's possession for examination to determine if any of the images exchanged between her and wife had violated law. I advised Seven that I would follow up with Special Agent, but that based on the information she had provided, I did not believe that a crime had taken place in the Want jurisdiction. On June 22nd, 2020, I spoke with Special Agent by telephone to follow up on their investigation. Special Agent told me the examination had not yet been completed and advised she had no other information on any crimes that occurred in Want jurisdiction. She told me she would notify me if the examination provided any details about criminal activity that needed further investigation. As of June 23rd, 2020, I have not heard back from any of the other women who are alleged victims of... All of the women had been in contact with Chris Hansen at some point to do a media interview and have had an opportunity to file a police report if warranted. Seven was a willing participant in sexual activity after the age of consent. In fact, after turning 18 years old, and was not under the legal care or custody of or wife. Based on the information gathered during my investigation, I have not been able to establish that a crime occurred. This report is for informational purposes due to the high volume of third-party and social media interest. There is nothing further at this time. Okay, I'm not giving any opinions here. I'm not giving any opinions. That is not what we're here for. We're reading documents. Oh my god. I'm like Emily D. Baker, except for less educated. So what we're reading now is a civil suit that was filed on March 2nd of 2023. It's 67 pages. It goes on and on and on, but it really gets to the what happened on page 45. So this was filed against and wife by Seven. On January 17th, 2019, the second night after arrival, Seven and wife were watching television on and wife's bed, as they had many times before. Don't be sitting on people's beds. Don't do it. Anyway, and wife began kissing and quickly began having sexual intercourse next to Seven on the bed. Seven was sexually inexperienced and was shocked by what was occurring. Nonetheless, without asking permission or confirming consent, pulled Seven over to where he and wife were engaging in sexual intercourse. Prior to this moment, Seven had not consented to sexual activity with either or wife. Seven began kissing wife. While Seven agreed to kiss wife, Seven did not intend to engage in any sexual acts with... After kissing, wife left the bedroom for a few moments, leaving with Seven. Without consent, immediately pulled Seven's pajama bottoms off. Seven was petrified and did not want her pants pulled off. She grabbed the sheet to cover her exposed body, physically grabbed the sheet and forcibly pulled on it, attempting to pull it off of Seven. Seven desperately pulled back, struggling to remain covered. When Seven resisted his attempts, became angry that she was not cooperating with him. Seven then attempted to reach for her pajama shorts while holding up the sheet. Seeing what she was attempting to do, quickly grabbed the shorts and flung them across the room and out of reach. Seven remained stationary, gripping the covers over her body. Thinking that understood she was not willing to engage in sexual acts with him based on the exchange that just took place, Seven began kissing wife again. This is not an opinion that I'm about to give. I'm just recapping what I've read from the document. Seven is saying that this man ripped her bottoms off and that she was hiding under the covers and he was trying to pull the covers away from her while she was naked underneath there. And then just like that, the wife reappears and they begin making out again. Am I wrong? I feel like that's what we just read here. Without warning, grabbed Seven's leg. Seven resisted and pulled her leg back, making her refusal to his demands obvious. Not taking no for an answer, used more force and shoved Seven in front of him. Without hesitation and against Seven's clear resistance to his advances, he attempted to first digitally penetrate Seven, and then he vaginally penetrated Seven from behind with his penis. Seven was petrified and she froze, unable to move her limbs. Continued to rape Seven for what felt like an eternity. Seven began to silently cry, with tears welling up in her eyes while she was being raped. Why didn't you tell this to the police? That's what I don't understand, like the discrepancies in the, okay. During this entire incident, wife did nothing to help Seven, because you were making out with her. The next morning, not knowing what to do, Seven attempted to hide downstairs, found her and picked her up, hugged her, and lavished her with kindness. Seven did not know what to make of this. Almost immediately after, demanded Seven sign an NDA document. That's a non-disclosure agreement, which are only valid if they've been notarized, so you can't just print this shit off Google and tell everybody you've sucked and fucked they gotta sign it before they leave your house. That is not an opinion! That is a fact. Seven was uncomfortable, but executed them because she believed there's a typo here. She believed she had no choice after having been groomed for her teenage years, culminating in these moments of vulnerability and control. In other words, when her guardians told her to sign the NDA documents, she had been groomed and conditioned to obey. That is true. I do believe that because Seven had lived with this married couple off and on throughout her teenage years, that like they were authority figures to her, right, you know? But again, why isn't this in the police report? Upon information and belief, and wife's intent with the non-disclosure agreement was to protect themselves from the illegal grooming and rape of plaintiff. The non-disclosure agreement was not a valid contract. The parties did not have a meeting of the minds when it was signed. Seven signed it under coercion and or duress, as Seven had been groomed and conditioned to obey and wife's directives. The non-disclosure agreement lacked any consideration. The terms were vague, general, and undefined. Even if the non-disclosure agreement had been contractually sound, it was also breached by Seven was sent home on January 20th, 2019. In the days and or weeks following execution of his plan to engage in sex acts with his target, Seven, he made statements indicating how much he enjoyed engaging in sex acts with Seven and wife together, that he missed Seven, that he loved Seven, and that he wanted to continue the polyamorous relationship. I will interject something anecdotal real quick. I definitely have been raped by people before. I have been raped before. A couple of times. And it took me years to realize that I had been raped, because I was raped by people that I was very close to and like I didn't understand. Right? Because, like, in our minds, a rapist is some boogeyman in the bushes who's gonna jump out, tear you apart, and, like, tackle you and just, right? And that's usually not the case. You tend to end up getting raped by people you know and trust and care about. So I understand, right? If at the time of filing the police report, Seven did not really think that she had been raped, and then a few years later she was like, oh, fuck, that was awful, right? I'm not judging anything. We are only here to just to go over these documents and note that they are very different. Seven, on the other hand, did not feel that she had engaged in a mutual and enjoyable act. Rather, she felt confused, ashamed, and afraid. Seven did not know how to handle the emotions she was having and was still seeking acceptance and understanding from wife and Seven returned to on or about February 16th through 20th, 2019 for her 8th visit. Purchased the flights. On or about June 30th, 2019, Seven returned to and wife's house again for her 9th trip. There are some typos in here. Oof. Who is your attorney? On the last night of her trip, the three engaged in sexual activity together. On the trip back to the airport on or about July 8th, 2019, told Seven that she was his girlfriend now. Seven felt incredibly guilty and used. However, this made her feel validated for the exploitation that had occurred to date. On or about from July 17th to July 23rd, 2019, new wife would be out of town in wife's home state and therefore flew Seven to their house to spend more time with him. After Seven made a few ambiguous statements about what happened, launched an online attack against her in the same manner and pattern as multiple of his former sexual partners. This is true. He really has done this to everyone he's ever fucked. My interest is solely because, I used to be friends with a girl who dated, and he wrecked her life real fucking quick, and then just went blabbering on to everybody all over the internet horrible things about her. And because he had, a pretty large following online at the time, well, yeah, and his followers just tend to attack these women. I will give you an opinion now. I do believe that is a manipulative, arrogant, raging fucking narcissist. Alright, back to the documents. On August 24th, 2019, manufactured a story, started victim shaming, and accused Seven of blackmailing and raping him. This method is referred to as DARVO, which refers to a reaction perpetrators of wrongdoing, particularly sexual offenders, may display in response to being held accountable for their behavior. DARVO stands for Deny, Attack, and Reverse Victim and Offender. The perpetrator or offender may deny the behavior, attack the individual doing the confronting, and reverse the roles of victim and offender such that the perpetrator assumes the victim role and turns the true victim, or the whistleblower, into an alleged offender. Sounds like one of my ex-boyfriends. This occurs, for instance, when an actually guilty perpetrator assumes the role of falsely accused and attacks the accuser's credibility and blames the accuser of being the perpetrator of a false accusation, has loudly proclaimed that he was falsely accused, and has continued to perpetrate the false narrative of being a victim after he strategically lured, enticed, transported, maintained, groomed, and ultimately raped Seven. On September 21st, 2022, released something he called his goodbye video, which was posted in 3 parts. These videos were posted on YouTube and were available for public viewing. In the first of these 3 videos, I remember these videos because he just went on these long-winded rambles that didn't make any fucking sense and playing poor me. Pitiful. Pathetic. Mind you, this man is 38. And this girl, Seven, who has filed these documents is, I think, 22 or 23 now. In the first of these 3 videos, falsely stated that Seven told that she would destroy his life and would only agree to not destroy his life, with lying specifically if she got what she wanted. Broke up with Seven because he was being sexually extorted. Seven was paid to lie in association with a television network and Chris Hansen. The television network and its parent company paid Seven $40,000 for raping him. He alleges that Seven raped him. He alleges that Seven performed sexual extortion, which is synonymous with rape. Seven raped because she told him she would destroy his life or hurt him if he did not sleep with her. Y'all, what the fuck? I already told you these videos didn't make any sense. And like reading this out loud, that's exactly what he did. He made no fucking sense. In the second of these 3 videos, falsely stated that he shouldn't have dumped Seven for raping him. Okay, what 30-something-year-old says dumped? This one, just this one. This is the only one. He said he should have let himself get raped. He said he should have just left Seven for raping him and not said anything bad about her. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Prior to posting this, was given notice as to the defamatory nature of these statements. These videos were published after notice. Has also published similar content on his Twitter feed. Again, he should have gone to law enforcement instead of Twitter. On February 8th, 2023, a separate victim also filed a lawsuit against wife, Google, and YouTube in the Middle District of Florida. As soon as they became aware of the lawsuit, both and wife attempted to silence Seven again by calling her and attempting to manipulate her to not file this lawsuit. As a direct result of these defamatory statements made by Seven has caused... What? Dude, this sentence is poorly constructed. I'm gonna have to fix this and not read it verbatim. As a direct result of these defamatory statements made by has caused Seven reputational harm. She has been baited and harassed online. She is fearful to have a public social media account. She has been publicly humiliated, emotionally, and psychologically harmed. Okay, so this lawsuit is jumping back in time several years. I think to like 2016. Okay, so after Seven moved in with and wife, word got out that a minor child had moved in with them. And many people on YouTube were not comfortable with this. Yeah, dude, it was fucking weird. Because these 2 YouTubers, this married couple, suddenly just had some random teenager living in their home. And people were like, y'all related to that kid? And they were like, nah, she's from halfway across the country. She's just living here for now. Nothing weird going on. God. Many YouTubers began to speak about on their own YouTube channels, and media began to surface that and spouse were predators. I do not doubt that they are predatory individuals. Okay, so this culminated in a documentary that was released on television network that featured other victim, Seven, and an old ex-girlfriend of who he dated back in like 2010 or 2011. It was only after the publication of this documentary that YouTube finally decided to demonetize channel for violations of their policies on or about January 21st, 2021. Okay, so the rest of this lawsuit is filed against YouTube and Google for allowing this man to have profitable accounts on YouTube.com. I think the only reason they're doing that is because they're more likely to get money out of YouTube and Google. They think that, like, because and wife do not have any fucking money. They don't. And sadly, they and wife do have children to provide for, right? So even if Seven won a judgment, I don't. You can't milk a rock. I do believe that naming YouTube and Google in the suit is hoping that YouTube and Google will just say, here's some money, shut up, leave us alone. Because they know that they're not going to be able to get any money out of or wife. Okay, we have finished reading the documents, both filed by the same individual, codename Seven. What do you make of it and these conflicting stories? Do you think that perhaps at the time the police report was filed, Seven really did believe that she had been a willing participant in these sexual activities, even if she was not? The only reason I wanted to read these is because it's two completely separate legal documents detailing the exact same incidents, but they are wildly different. And ultimately, I do believe that Seven was victimized in some way. I don't know if she was victim of like an actual crime, but I do believe that and wife did do her very wrong. I think that's the only way I can put it. So I'm not going to be one of those YouTubers who is like, let me know what you guys think, leave it in the comments, and then like never read the comments and just be like, haha, you commented on my video. No, like if you do have an opinion or thoughts about this, I care. I want to know. Tell me about it. And I want to thank you for listening. I feel like forgiveness is very important, so I want you to forgive yourself for the time that you have wasted watching this video. And have a good day.